I've got some bandits out there. 8 o'clock. Multi-wave attack. Cobra 5. Hang back.
Cobra 5. Cobra 6. Cover me. Flat bursts. Over. Sinuju. Rattler, lead! I'm under attack! Get me some fighters and get them fast!
Of the many wars in the 1900s that America was involved in, the Korean War is by far the most forgettable. Even among aviation enthusiasts, many ignore the war that birthed the jet age and had some of the most unique dogfighting and pilot tactics before the invention of the heat seeker. Like the real-life lack of popularity, there doesn't seem to be many games or flight sims featuring the Korean War, despite it having some of the coolest and most controversial what-ifs, including nuclear weapons and the involvement of China. However, there is one game that I believe does the Korean War justice, but has been completely forgotten in the passage of time. Let's talk about the game MiG Alley. MiG Alley, created by Ronin Software and released by Empire, is a unique simulation of the Korean War, in which you have access to a wide spread of Blue 4 and Red 4 aircraft. Specifically, it focuses on the MiG-15 versus the F-86 Sabre. In MiG Alley, you take part in the most detailed dynamic campaign to date, with moving ground units, ships, and landing craft, infantry with classes such as mortar squads, and of course, lots of enemy MiGs.
Cobra 1 here. All Cobras. Let's get the hell out of here. I'll buy the drinks.
One thing of note is that the source code was legally released shortly after Ronin Software and Empire moved away from flight sims. Thus, there exists a fan-made patch that introduces things, such as track IR and some much-needed QOL improvements. The AI is great, and so are the dynamic comms. There's a wide range of comms options, and even a forward air controller that will fly around in the target area. He will mark targets and inform you of what needs to be shot. It's seriously a great system.
I think I can see a target at your 12. Cobra, leader, I have bogeys at 2 o'clock. High.
Cobra, lead, bogey, 2 miles, 10 o'clock, high.
Engage. Cobra 5. Here. Cobra 6. Cover me. Cobra.
The AI are smart too, and will follow orders and attack units in a pleasing manner. Regarding the air dogfights, one thing I will say is, I don't know if the enemy MiG flight model is cheating. Sometimes it definitely feels that way, that they can kind of turn on a dime or do some strange maneuvers. Well, I think they're cheating, but for this game, I can forgive it somewhat. It's not trying to be ultra realistic, just wants you to have a good time. Here I am in a scissors fight with the enemy MiG until I go and stress my airframe, and then flame out. It's pretty fun, and definitely better than any DTS AI.
I have a flame out.
Let's talk about the world and the planes in it. The graphics are spectacular, but limited by a small view distance. Unfortunately, for this time period, visual navigation is pretty important. It's unfortunately half the distance of Total Air War, but the number of objects are really nice. The cheating map works super well too. Cockpit-wise, I love it. The zoom options are great and track IR works seamlessly. However, there is no Y-axis, making it hard to lead a shot when the bandit is turning away. This means moving up in your seat. The Z-axis to zoom in is great, and works well with my existing DCS track IR profile. That being said, IDing hostiles in a furball is pretty easy. The game has some sort of lighting effect, in which the MiGs will always stay brown or green, and friendlies stay yellow, white, or blue. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's a pretty neat system. Ground units can also be ID'd easily. Seriously, 5 stars to whoever designed the LODs of enemies, because it's great. In terms of flight models, I'm no expert, but it's definitely not easy. These planes will kill you at the slightest mistake, such as high AOA and low airspeed, and will even make fun of you when you have a flame out. The music will kick in. The damage model is honestly pretty good. You have cockpit and HUD damage that will show both internal and externally, and the amount of external damage that can be shown on your jet is pretty wide. Bullets on the side, exposed wiring, blown off wings, bullet holes in your wing, they have everything. The amount of weapons is tiny, but that reflects the time frame. You have guns, rockets, bombs, and, best of all, napalm. Using these weapons are highly satisfying, but I wish the napalm had more of a spread though. When you're using the guns, they make these little hit marker sounds when you strike an enemy MiG or the tank, and you get visual effects where sparks will fly from the enemy. Quality of life improvements are present everywhere. Not only can you fast forward time, but you can even skip to the next waypoint or segment like you can in EF2000 or TAW, and watch your plane move live on the map. The external views to enemies and other aircraft is unfortunately non-existent, but there is a pretty neat view called Impact Toggle, in which the camera focuses on the target of your payload, and it's pretty fun to watch the infantry scatter when you light them up with guns, rockets, or napalm. The standalone missions are plentiful and more than enough to learn the ropes. The instant action mode is fun and definitely creates that furball feeling of the Korean War. That being said, the manual is probably one of the worst manuals I've ever read. It's clear to me that they didn't have enough time to explain anything in detail like other manuals of the era, especially the campaign. I barely know how anything works, and we'll get to that later. So, what's this super cool map that I keep bringing up? Well, it's the semi-dynamic campaign system, and it's definitely the most unique that I've seen. First of all, there are so many scenarios taking place in 5 different stages of the Korean War. It's turn-based, not real-time like Falcon or Total Air War. The menu for it, though, uses GDI instead of integrating with the direct draw menu like other games, so the map can be rendered in my full ultra-wide fidelity, and it looks absolutely gorgeous when zooming in and out. It kind of reminds me of the wargaming of old, where units like infantry and tanks jump around and battle for control. It's honestly just perfect for matching the time frame in which visual navigation is more important than ever. You need to see the hills, roads, and trees to orient towards the enemy, and the fidelity here is truly impressive. The gameplay loop is fun too. The briefings are clear-cut, with messages like, hey, we have these tanks here, they're about to be attacked by mortars, go help them out. The granularity, it's so down to earth, where the forward air controller will point you to the enemy and even help out by marking them, telling you where to start your run. You can even frag missions yourself, but in these first 4 scenarios, I recommend not to do that. Because if you do, you can easily lose the campaign, even if you succeed in another area. These campaigns are also super short and only last like 4 to 5 missions, which I find really strange. But the 5th campaign in 1951 is where things really get interesting. It's called the Spring Offensive, and the game gives you full control of 112 aircraft to plan missions to push all the way back to China. You can either influence the AI by setting what's called directives, similar to the priorities and pack system in Falcon 4, and the AI will plan missions. Or you can plan everything yourself, but it's a lot of granular work. The flight distance is also insanely long, usually across the entirety of Korea, so thank God for the time skip. But here's where the bad comes back. I'm very confused with this mode, and I'm not really sure how to put it. It feels to me like they built the system but never finished fleshing it out. Not that any campaign is perfect, but this one just feels the quirkiest. Like some sort of smoke and mirrors is happening in the background that I don't understand. I'm not sure if the world is truly alive when I'm flying, and since the campaign isn't live, I can't really tell. I'm also not sure what impact my flights have on the theater. You have all of these systems that may or may not be doing anything, and I can't answer the question of whether or not it even matters. Games like Total Air War or EF2000 have ground units, but they don't really do much, and you kind of get the sense of that. Games like Falcon 4, the ground units are of the utmost importance. They capture things, and you see it reflect on the map. But here, I have no idea one way or the other. Maybe someone more experienced can chime in the comments, but due to this turn-based system, it's kind of hard to tell. I guess what it really boils down to is the lack of the feedback, that what you're doing is making a difference. Maybe there's just not that much going on in the world. Falcon 4.0 from the start had this live feed, like news reports, where it would tell you ground units are capturing these cities, AA engagement, ships on the move. In EF2000, another turn-based campaign system, you had the very clear-cut progress of the airbase hopping. There was a lot less going on in the world, but the goals were at least crystal clear. So, to me it's very strange that MiG Alley doesn't have the feedback of Falcon 4, nor the progress of another static campaign like EF2000. It's a weird amalgamation of the two, and that's why I consider this campaign system unfinished. If it was finished, it would be among the greats, for sure. Unfortunately, multiplayer is limited to head-to-head and no campaign. That's really unfortunate, and I wish that it was in this game. So, what's the conclusion? Where does this game rank? Well, it's kind of wrapped up in the title, frustratingly unique. Mig Alley sets a solid tone with its lightheartedness, fun, and gives you plenty of toys to play with. The world is awesome, especially when it's full of action. But, on the other hand, its turn-based system feels very scripted. As a result, you don't know what's going on in the world besides what you see after the mission is complete. Like many Sims of the era, this game is chasing perfection, but can't quite reach it, which is a shame because the campaign system has so much potential here if only it was finished. It has more freedom in the mission and target planning than any game I've talked about before, but at the same time, there's absolutely no information on what anything does or if anything even matters. Despite this, it's insanely fun and unique with its setting, and I'd gladly put Mig Alley up in B tier with the other turn-based Sims, EF 2000 and Falcon 3.